In 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, triggering one of the most devastating conflicts in modern history. Nearly 3 years into this war, there has been no peace agreement in sight. But what are the true human consequences of this ongoing crisis for both Ukrainians and the global community, especially the United States? Today, we explore the far-reaching impacts of a failure to reach peace. For Ukrainians, the consequences of the war are both immediate and long-term. Over 200,000 Ukrainians have lost their lives in the conflict, with millions more injured. The war has displaced nearly 14 million people, half of them fleeing the country as refugees, while the other half are internally displaced within Ukraine itself. Every day, civilians live under the constant threat of bombardment. Entire cities, once vibrant and full of life, now lie in ruins. The emotional toll is devastating. Families torn apart, children traumatized, and communities destroyed. These human lives lost represent more than just statistics. They represent generations of potential disrupted. On the front lines, Ukrainian soldiers face unrelenting challenges. Many are young men and women who are forced to defend their homeland, often without sufficient resources. Every day they risk their lives to protect their families, their culture, and their sovereignty. But even when the fighting ends, the psychological scars will last forever. PTSD, survivor's guilt, and the destruction of entire communities are heavy burdens that will take decades to heal. For the United States, the cost of this prolonged conflict is also enormous, though perhaps less visible to the average citizen. The U.S. has committed billions of dollars in military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And while this support has been critical, the toll it takes on American taxpayers cannot be ignored. These funds come at a time when the U.S. faces pressing domestic issues, like rising inflation, infrastructure needs, and healthcare demands. Political debates over the budget reflect the strain this conflict is placing on the American economy. Some argue that continued financial support for Ukraine is necessary to safeguard global stability, while others worry about the long-term financial implications. Militarily, the US and NATO forces have become deeply involved in the war, offering training, weapons, and intelligence to Ukraine. While this support has proven effective in slowing Russian advances, it also risks escalating the conflict. The threat of a larger confrontation between nuclear powers looms large. A failure to secure a peace deal may mean years of proxy warfare, with increasing tensions between NATO and Russia. The global geopolitical landscape is already shifting, with countries like China and India watching closely. If the war continues without resolution, it could lead to a more fragmented world order, where alliances are tested and regional conflicts become more likely. And then, there's the broader global impact. The war has disrupted global supply chains, leading to skyrocketing energy prices, especially in Europe. Agricultural exports from Ukraine, one of the world's largest producers of grain, have plummeted, exacerbating food insecurity in parts of Africa and the Middle East. Inflation is rising worldwide, and emerging economies are facing severe financial distress. However, not all hope is lost. There are growing calls for a peace agreement from both the Ukrainian people and the international community. While some fear that a peace deal may require difficult compromises, others argue that prolonged conflict will only result in further loss and suffering for both sides. Peace is not just about ending the fighting, it's about rebuilding lives, restoring stability, and preventing future generations from suffering the consequences of a war that never should have happened. The true cost of a failure to reach a peace deal is measured not just in dollars or geopolitical power, but in the human lives lost, displaced, and forever changed. The stakes are incredibly high, for Ukraine, the United States, and the entire world. Will we choose diplomacy, or will we continue down a path of destruction? Only time will tell.